Hello and welcome to the Guardian Football Weekly. France and Morocco, the first two sides through to the quarterfinals of the World Cup. Kylian Mbappe's penalty was enough for the French. An extraordinary exhibition of shithousery and filth from Paraguay. You wonder what the Uzbek League is like for the Paraguayans to get no yellow cards in this game, at least until after the final whistle. Matthias Garlatza could have had 8 on his own. France kept their cool just about, Mbappe laughing his way through it. Ultimately, probably good for football that France made it through. Meanwhile, Morocco looked second best for a lot of the game against Canada, but when it mattered, they took their chances brilliantly and will probably offer a sterner test for France in the next round. We've all climbed a hill so we can give you deep personal and scientific insights into how England will fare at altitude against Mexico. Happy 4th of July, everyone. This is the Guardian Football Weekly. On the panel today with me in LA, Barry Glendenning, welcome.
Hello, Max.
Hello, Archie Rhind-Tutt.
Hey, Max.
And just landed in Mexico City. Hey, Barney, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. I managed to survive an incredible electrical storm on the way to my hotel. So simply being alive at this point feels like a bonus.
Has it made you treat every second differently, would you say?
Yeah, I decided that from now on, everything has to be special, perfect. I'm just going to suck the sweetness out of life, which is why I'm here.
Yeah, of course. What better way to begin the all-new Barney Ronay. All right, let's talk about France's win over Paraguay first. And before I get the panel's thoughts, I caught up with Philippe Auclair at full time. So, okay, Philippe, 1-0 then, an Mbappe penalty. The difference, it was Paraguay's first and only foul of the game. I'm surprised you're not covered in blood, if I'm honest. How was it for you?
I think we could just keep it at that, just laugh. I've rarely seen anything like this. I honestly, I don't know what to say. I'd like to know what the instructions given by Alfaro to his players were. Instead, we think of managers, on the training pitch. I don't know. They rehearse free kicks and corner kicks and transitions and playing 10v11, and they must have like special courses. Like, this is how you fall when a player is within 2 inches of you and you pretend to have been hit in the head, or this is how you give an elbow to a player with this is the way you have to do it, the angle you've got to take so the referee doesn't see you. But it's strange, Max. I was absolutely zen-like throughout the whole game. I was just laughing because I think I couldn't believe what I was seeing. This is a shithousery of that level. It's absolutely sensational. But the thing is that the French didn't lose their temper, and there was only one. Mm-hmm. I mean, the way that 3 French players were booked and no Paraguayan player was booked
you kicked them off the park.
You
kicked them off the park, Philippe.
Yeah, that's what happened.
You booted them off the park. It does make you think what the Uzbek League is like with that ref. I know they've been given instructions to let things go, but I thought Paraguay, and I'll get into it, the lads were an embarrassment on that pitch today.
Yeah, they were. They were embarrassing because they're actually far better footballers than that. They obviously thought they had no chance, and that the only way they could possibly get something out of this game was to get a French player sent off, to foul whenever possible, to work the referee, he was so bad. The ref was so bad. It was embarrassing. And it was an embarrassment, but there was, and there is nothing, in a way, there is nothing to show for this game, because you think that's a game to get into the quarters of the World Cup. This is probably an opportunity that very few of those Paraguayan players will ever have again in their career. And then they decide to do this with it. That's shocking. And from the French side, I think the positives are like, there are no injuries, obvious injuries. Nobody got a red card. Doué was very good when he came on, and the penalty, which was a penalty for once, was he got it because he's a super player. Lucazini, I thought, was terrific at left back, which I think would probably reassure Didier Deschamps a little bit. Other than that, it was a game for nothing. I don't know if he felt that way.
Yeah.
I didn't feel engaged in that game that I've been in other games in those knockout rounds, because I felt, France is controlling. No, of course they're not creating an awful lot, but they will create something at some point. That's fine. And it's just a matter of not being totally stupid. And they were not stupid. They controlled that. I think Kylian Mbappe's reaction throughout the whole game, which is basically, I think he spent the last 45 minutes just laughing at people. Just laughing at them, saying, guys, you can't be serious. You really can't be serious. But, justice was done. And I don't think many people will miss. I don't think many people will miss Paraguay, to be honest.
It's funny because I love shithousery, but it gets to a level where you're like, come on, this is ridiculous. I mean, because it could have got dangerous, I think, for the French players. I suppose the only question is it a concern? This is the first time that you haven't seen France create buckets. Okay, they didn't score until just on half-time against Sweden, but like they could have been 10-0 up. Apart from, Hill made that great double save from Mbappé. He made a couple of other decent saves. You didn't really create much. Does that bother you at all?
No, not really, because I think that when you think that the temperature on the pitch was 37 to 38, feeling like 40 to 41, obviously this is going to have a big impact on the way the players in the transitions. Then it's going to have a big impact as well. I mean, to be honest, Paraguay, for all the shithousery, as teams playing with a low block are concerned, are as well organized as anybody else. So it was going to be very, very tough to break them down. I think everybody would know that. But I don't feel concerned. I think it was a game for nothing, to be honest. Like, it happened and it didn't happen in the same way. And next one will be against Morocco, which I think there will be moments where you will want to watch that behind the sofa. I think it's going to be a pretty tough one. Mm-hmm. But Morocco is a team that plays quite proactive football. So we're going to have a completely different game. And you'll see, again, the French team that you've seen before. But it also shows, Max, that the France we saw in the group phase was a France that wasn't playing against top teams, basically. And against Sweden, that was the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Senegal, yes, perhaps. And the first half against Senegal was not that great. Then it changed with Olise coming in the middle, as we know. Then the other group games, it was Norway fielded the B team. Sweden afterwards was not defended. So we didn't really know. We still don't know how good or great this French national team can be. What they did is that they did what they had to do. And in a way, it was damage limitation as well, because it could have gone bad very, very quickly. And it could have gone bad very, very badly. And it didn't happen. And I always felt they were in control and I always felt that they had the possibility. It was not one of those where you're sitting at the edge of the seat saying, they've got to score, something stupid is going to happen. No, it didn't feel like that at all. But honestly, I just have to laugh. I mean, it's just, I've rarely seen anything like this. I mean, it's
you
really
and Kylian,
taking the piss.
You're on for the full pod after the Morocco game, so we will chat to you then. But merci beaucoup, au revoir, félicitations.
Bonne nuit à toi, Max.
Philippe Auclair there laughing his way through what was, I mean, Barry, the BBC called Paraguay stubborn, which feels generous to me.
Yes, they are a very obdurate team. Well, to be fair, there was a lot of pearl clutching on the BBC after the game. Joe Hart in particular, who I love Joe Hart as a pundit, but Joe Hart was particularly exercised by the Paraguayans' shithouse tactics, and said he would hate to win that way, and he would hate if any players on a team of his played that way. And I suppose he has a point. If everyone played like that, no one would watch football. But when one team plays like it, and it's your stereotypical team of South American underdogs, it's kind of funny for a while anyway. But yeah, they got away with murder from the Uzbekistan referee Ilgiz Tantashev, who somehow got through the game without booking any Paraguayan players. I think he booked one of their coaching staff. And as you said in your intro, Galarza, Matthias Galarza.
My God, what
how
an
he
awful
stayed on
bastard.
the pitch. It's just incredible. But he was at everything, and he was really trying to wind up the French players, and he did it up to a point. He was then, I think, when he realised the jig was up towards the end of the game, and Paraguay had stopped actually trying to pull a goal back, in so much as they ever did try to score. He was just focusing all his attention on getting Kylian Mbappé sent off. And Mbappé was having none of it, was just laughing in his face. But Michael Elise was getting very wound up, among other French players, but him in particular. But the Paraguayans, they time wasted, they fouled, they threw elbows. There was a couple of rugby-style palms off in the face of French players. And they argued with the referee, they argued with their French players, they kicked shins, they elbowed, just the whole gamut of shithousery. And while I commend their performances in getting this far, even though that game against Australia will live long in my memory for all the wrong reasons, I'm not sorry to see the back of them.
No, that feels like enough. It did remind me, Barney, of Sunday League games I've played in when they beat the living shit out of you. And at the end of the game, they go, "Good battle, mate." But there will be no greater feeling for that than being in that French dressing room after you have beaten a team like that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I saw them against Germany in Boston, Paraguay. And they are a good team. You know, they can play. And I guess this was a decision. How do you combat France's attack? Well, there's one way. I really like their manager. I'm sad to see him leave the World Cup, Gustavo Alfaro. There's been a kind of phenomenon at this World Cup. Last night I was at Capo Verde in Miami, and the wonderful Bubista walked in at the end to talk about his players. And there's this kind of serene, gloomy man trope of these managers. I mean, Alfaro is a 63-year-old Argentine who's managed everywhere. And they talk in quite simple terms about being proud and dignity and being warriors and all this kind of stuff. But they're kind of nice men, and they clearly love the game, and they're kind of a nice antidote to, I would include Don Carlo Ancelotti in that as well. Sort of old men who you wouldn't mind just sort of sitting next to at a bar or kind of being in a lift with, because they just raise an eyebrow. And they're kind of a nice antidote to the shoutiness of the rest of the World Cup. So I'm sad to see him go. And Bubista was fantastic. I love Bubista. And if Bubista's listening or watching and would like to be my dad.
Archie, you made a good point with this. That we are so conditioned to support the underdog. And at the start of the game, you're like, I hope Paraguay win. But they just got so filthy. I think it's the scuffing the penalty spot that just does literally when the penalty came in and every Paraguay player walked to the penalty spot and the ref was just like, go away, and another one would just walk up. You're never getting a yellow card out, that you sort of eventually think this would be a footballing crime if France didn't get through.
Do you remember the goodwill that Paraguay earned from the world when they beat Germany?
Yeah.
And everybody was thinking, wow, great for Paraguay. Look at them, they've got their own national holiday. I think that in France that has been extinguished, at least. And you mention the scraping of the penalty spot. I've seen Julio Enciso scraping away the referee's vanishing foam during this game. I showed you a clip from German TV which they'd found where when Mike Maignan is trying to launch a quick counter-attack, suddenly from behind him, Juan Cáceres just falls on top of him.
It's so funny.
And you can see that Cáceres has been walking fine before that, and he's just absolutely tanked it on top of him.
But you don't find any of this funny at all?
Oh, it's hilarious.
Maybe more obsessed with the rules. It's seen as, it's clever.
Yeah.
And football's a game where you try to kind of dodge in and out of the rules slightly in some other football cultures.
I suppose the question is does it get to a line where you might injure one of their players? And I don't know if it felt to me
Not
like...
by scratching the penalty spot.
I don't know why that really pisses me off, Barney. It just really pisses me off.
Usually I enjoy shithousery as well. I just felt that there was a line where it started to move into thuggery when Galarza hits Mbappe there, and you can say, but it's not hitting him in a point of the body where it's going to really hurt. But still, you are opening the door there, and the referee doesn't do his job which is to caution these players. And that's what leads to this continuation of that in the second half. I don't know, it just fell the wrong side of my humour lines for the most part. I mean, I ended up just laughing in disbelief by the end of the game. And I thought it was interesting that Didier Deschamps has said after the game that he was remembering when they won the World Cup in 2018 and how they had a game against Uruguay and he had to take off Kylian Mbappé. And he said that he asked two of the toughest players on the bench to protect him at the end of the game because he doesn't want to lose him to anything more. Kylian Mbappé was speaking about how, look, they thought that we were going to turn up here in tuxedos, but we showed that we can play dirty football too. Mm-hmm. It is a great victory for France because we've seen a completely different side of them at this tournament so far, and I think they're going to walk out of this game with a different kind of confidence to them now because they've shown that they can stand up for each other and not take the bait.
I think it just gave me PTSD of playing Finchley away or Garchonians away or Hume away in Melbourne and just thinking I don't want to have my legs broken today. But can
I make an interesting comparison?
Please.
In '86, England played Paraguay in Mexico, and famously, the guy who was marking Gary Lineker hit him so hard in the throat with his arm that Lineker couldn't speak for the rest of the half. And he actually made a kind of call. Lineker afterwards said, "I don't think he meant it. I don't want to think he didn't." And it, like, obviously a terrible thing to do, and that's no one should be doing that. But England won 3-0, and it kind of made me really like Gary Lineker and kind of admire. He scored 2 goals in that game, and England won, and he was very gentlemanly about that. And I kind of thought it ennobled the game and made me think that was kind of cool. So maybe with the passing of time, we'll look back on this and think it was cool.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, I think in this game at half-time, we were all going, Paraguay, well done. You've frustrated them. I don't think... Did France even have a shot on target in the first half?
And I think Hill's first save was a Kone shot from 25 yards, something in the second half. Yeah.
Right, okay. And you're going, you've set out to frustrate and shake house and spoil, and you've done exactly that. And so well done, because you're not as good as France. You know, everyone knows that. It's the highest ranked team in the competition against the lowest ranked team left in the competition, I think. And then they go a goal down. They continue this approach, and they're getting dirtier and dirtier. And they go a goal down, and suddenly there's like 7 minutes left, and they're not trying to score an equaliser. It's as if they didn't quite... I know they scuffed the penalty spot. It's as if they hadn't realised, we actually need to score a goal here. But all their attention was just on winding up various French players.
Yeah, and they did it, but not well enough. All right, that'll do for part 1. Part 2, we'll do Morocco's win against Canada. Welcome to part 2 of the Guardian Football Weekly. So Morocco are through. They beat Canada 3-0. Archie, not sure it was a 3-0 game. What did you make of it?
Canada were on top in the first half, and that was the way they had to approach this game, because if Morocco were to make a fast start and get ahead, then I don't think Canada would have had a chance. So the strategy call from Jesse Marsch made sense. The problem for Canada at this tournament where they've not been able to take all their chances at the right time. And there was that moment where Jonathan David had the chance to hit it when there was a great piece of build-up with Oluwaseyi, and he just doesn't go for it. And you see a certain fragility in Jonathan David's confidence still, even though he had that hat-trick against Qatar. He's just not quite making the right decisions at the right times for a striker where you just want to bank on your instinct. And fair play to Morocco, whilst they were overrun in the first half, they only had 1 touch in the Canada box. They didn't panic, and these are the 2 sprintiest teams in the tournament left. So we shouldn't have been surprised by the intensity which there was. And even if Bono had to come to the rescue as well with 1 big save, let's not underestimate that they lost Ismail Saibari to a thigh injury. We've seen Mohamed Ouabi, the Morocco coach, say we're going to have a look in a few days. It seemed a slight injury, which they'll really hope for. But this was some adversity that Morocco had to come through. And that they score a kind of goal where, as a defending team, you are furious that it's that easy to score. But as the attacking team, you look quite smart. It's a really lovely finish from Azzedine Ronay. And from there, they didn't really relinquish control of the game.
Yeah, the finishing was great from Morocco.
Yeah, because they didn't have many chances, but the ones they did get, they put away, which is what Canada were unable to do, and ultimately cost them. First goal, free kick, nicely worked set piece. Zerouani received the pass from Hakimi, I think it was, and just drilled this low shot through traffic into the bottom corner. And then the second two were brilliantly executed breakaway goals, and they almost got another one, identical. By the time they were 3-0 up, I think they'd only had 3 shots on target. They scored all 3 of them. And that one obviously doesn't count as a shot on target, despite what Troy Townsend would have you believe.
After the game, Jesse Marsch said there was one team on the pitch. He said that of their start to the game, at least. We were better than the number 7 team in the world. I'd rather be us than them. I mean, I quite like Jesse Marsch, Barney. I think he's done well for Canada. It is, their most successful men's World Cup campaign. They got their first point, their first win, their first group stage progression, first knockout victory. How do you feel about Jesse?
Fair enough. He wants to be ballsy and kind of peppy in defeat, but it seems pretty graceless to me. Why would you say that? I think the right thing to do is to congratulate your opponent. But Morocco, a really good team. I quite want them to win the World Cup. I think they'll give France a really good game. They're kind of a fascinating team. I mean, they have so many players who've come through Ajax, through the French football machine, through Belgium as well. Who are Moroccans, and you can sort of call that a diaspora team if you want, but it's not. There's a reason why there are Moroccan people in those countries, and it's not because Morocco's chosen that to happen to them. I like the way this World Cup is kind of piecing nations back together like a jigsaw in that way, and telling you stories about them, and that's quite an American thing in a country of immigrants and people who've moved around the place. I think they're really. I would think it would be such an interesting thing if Morocco to actually win the World Cup, which I really don't think is impossible. It's not impossible. I think that would be really fascinating and really hard for Donald Trump to kind of compute as well, which I'd quite enjoy. This is definitely not in his kind of, well, I don't think he has a script, does he? But it's definitely not in his kind of fevered dreams. I think they're really good, and I'd rather be them, I think, than Canada.
Sure. And it's an interesting point that you made. I thought this was actually, especially their first half, was actually their sort of least impressive performance so far.
Possibly. I mean, Canada have a brilliant pressing system. They're a really well drilled team. They've done really well. He's managed them really well. They've really competed really well at this World Cup. They're really disciplined and they're really well coached. And he maybe showed a way to play against possession teams like that if you're willing to really press like that. And that was good. But they still won 3-0. And they are, I guess, champions of Africa, if we want to say that, although I'm not really sure where that one ended up. If you can win 3-0 when a team has kind of slightly tactically got to you, I think you're doing okay, and they'll feel pretty good about it, I think.
The main thing for Jesse Marsch is that his players believe him and his players buy into it, but it's difficult on the outside to buy into everything he says. For example, yesterday, Max, in an interview, he was talking about the US men's national team job, where he said, people like to say, oh, he wishes he coached the national team. Let me make it really clear. I will never coach the US national team. Ever. And that's no problem. There was the possibility of me at one point, but I'm done with it. I don't even care anymore. Do you believe him?
I don't know.
I mean, he may never coach the US men's national team, but I'm not sure it will be his decision. He said after this game, I'd rather be us than them. I'd rather be Canada than Morocco. And he's getting pelters for this, but he seems to be very unpopular in the United States. That's the vibe I'm getting. And someone, admittedly, it was just some bloke in a bar, was telling me, but who...
Absolutely, that's journalism, Barry.
I picked
that's
up
journalism.
some of my...
Yeah, they're your sources.
Yeah. Some bloke in a bar said that he really wanted the US job. He didn't get it, and now he more or less took the Canada job as a bit of an FU to the States. And I think his comment, I'd rather be us than them, has been misconstrued. I don't think he was saying Canada were better than Morocco, because they clearly weren't. They lost 3-0 and it could have been worse. I think he was just, I prefer our team spirit, I prefer my players, and I prefer the vibe we have in our camp. And, say if Arsenal went out and hammered Sunderland in a match, I would still rather be a Sunderland fan than an Arsenal fan.
I'd add to what Barry's saying that this is not to take away from the job that Jesse Marsch has done.
Yeah.
When you consider that Alphonso Davies has missed basically the entirety of this tournament, I think if you told Canadians that 4 years ago that they'd have to go through this home tournament without him...
Kone as well, missing a lot of it.
It's a really good achievement, and that he's brought everyone together and pushing in the right direction. Can Canada go beyond the last 16 at the next World Cup? It depends on the draw. It doesn't look like they have the players to consistently go further like Morocco have gone on to do. What was lacking was technical quality today. But yeah, just a bit of sadness as well for Alphonso Davies that his career was meant to have been building to this moment. Mm-hmm. And in the end, when Jesse Marsch asked him before this game, do you have enough in the tank to play? The answer was an honest no.
A journalist did say at the end to Jesse Marsch, we want to thank you for making us dream. Before, we never believed we'd ever make it this far, so we just want to say thank you. Will you say that to Thomas Tuchel if England win the World Cup, Barney, in a presser? Thank you for making us dream.
Thomas Tuchel has already made me dream.
This is the post-storm Barney we all wanted.
I really like Thomas Tuchel. One of my favourite things about him at the moment is there's a whole thing on Mumsnet of kind of quite flushed and slightly thirsty mums talking about how they find him incredibly attractive. And it's seen as a guilty pleasure. It's, I shouldn't, I don't want to, but I can't stop looking. And he's been described as a kind of a vampire, as a undernourished vagrant. But there's a whole thing on Mumsnet. And right. To be honest, for the vampiric, boggle-eyed, Germanic community, so often marginalised in that kind of discussion, it's a really good thing. It's great to be, I feel seen. Yeah. I feel appreciated. Mm-hmm. I would normally go into a kind of thing about impossible beauty standards, and it's really good to have but this is actually an impossible beauty standard. You think it's easy to look like this? It takes a huge amount of work. Mm-hmm. So Thomas has been great for the whole community of us guys who are kind of 53 years old and have boggle eyes and look like that.
We all want to belong, and you found your place.
Can I ask, Barney, how do you know this is on Mumsnet?
Somebody sent it to me who has been joking about Tuchel's attractiveness and saying, this could be good for you. So
is that your wife?
No, it was a friend. But I do get England fans now walk past me and shout, Thomas Tuchel.
Oh, that's good.
I'm that guy. I have to do the kind of banter along with it.
Do you prefer that or Donald Tusk or Niles Crane? What's your favourite?
Oh, it's much better than Tusk. Yeah. Nobody thought Tusk was not sexy. Tusk was powerful.
Right.
But it's incredibly flattering. I mean, Tuchel used to be a model when he was a younger man. He's an incredibly handsome man. So I am not saying that I look like Thomas Tuchel, but I'm very, very happy to be swept up. The whole community is happy to be swept up in his aura. We have a leader now.
All right, that'll do for part 2. Part 3, we'll look ahead to the game or just do more on Barney's new job as a Thomas Tuchel lookalike. Welcome to part 3 of the Guardian Football Weekly. So tomorrow, Brazil, Norway and Mexico, England. You're in Mexico. Has the altitude affected your I mean, it doesn't sound like it has. It's been one of your finest performances to date. But what are your general thoughts on the game?
Well, I'm trying to save myself from problems with altitude by not doing any exercise or moving fast. Good. And so far it's working. I can confirm that the storm stuff, they're not mucking about that. I was in a taxi coming from the airport about 2 hours ago, and the traffic was so bad. I mean, it seemed to be raining outside, but the traffic was terrible. So I said, look, I'm just going to get out and walk. I walked the last mile. And I've never seen a storm like it. It was incredible. I walked through this storm. You know when you're just instantly drenched, like trousers just sticking to your leg. I had my trusty cagoule on, but forget that. No function whatsoever. It was like being in one of those vampire films where there is literally like really really kind of clear forked lightning directly over your head, accompanied by really loud. I've never seen anything like it. I was really quite scared. Luckily, I had my trusty metal hat on.
Yeah, good.
So everything was fine, keeping the rain off. But no, it was amazing. They're not joking about these storms. That was a really, really frightening form. The streets flooded. I was stuck in an underpass for a while. It was very exciting. When I got to the hotel, I kind of discussed it with the guy there on the desk, and he just said, the gods are angry.
And then he said, "Are you Thomas Tuchel?" To the game itself, I mean, altitude. However many journalists have done a 5K to say it's harder to run at altitude, it is true. Like, it will be difficult for England. It will change how they play. I wonder, do you think they should play a sort of Jose Conte low block type thing in this game?
Well, I think they should do that anyway.
Right.
I don't think this is a game to be. There's so many things wrong with this England team. There are combinations that aren't working, and Tuchel has spoken about this. He hasn't solved the problems with his wide players at all. He doesn't know who goes with who's playing well. Like, there's lots wrong. The central midfield is lacking that sort of, well, it just doesn't have that shielding player that they need. So lots of things to fix, but this is not the game to fix them. It's a get in and get out game. And the one thing, I said this in my preview, the one thing England so far, they've picked a team to run into spaces and to counter-attack and to be quick on the transition. That's the whole plan. And they've played teams who don't want them to do that, who've said, we're going to have a low block and you must break us down. I don't think Mexico will be able to do that in the Azteca, where the energy is a really big advantage to them. If they attack England, it will at least, I'm not saying this is going to make England win the game, it might make them lose it 3-0, but it will at least give them something which reflects the game plan they're expecting to have to enact. I think I fancy England a bit more than most people. I've got a feeling they might score from a corner, and it might be one of those, and the atmosphere might be more of a problem for Mexico than them. I mean, English players are, whatever they are, they're not the greatest team in the world, but they are used to playing in stadiums where there's a lot of pressure and things like that. I think this might be their best game of the World Cup, I think.
Barney, I remember years ago, I make a careful note of everything you say on the podcast so I can use it against you at a later date, but we were talking about some team or other not being able to sort out their defence, probably Spurs, and someone made a point, well, it's a really difficult thing to do, and you made the quite salient point that Thomas Tuchel arrived at Chelsea when they were in disarray and sorted out their defence in an afternoon. Why hasn't he been able to do the same thing with England, do you think?
I think because it's different. He would really like to have John Stones. He's lost a whole defence from the Southgate era. He's not got Stones. Maguire, he just doesn't think is going to work. He's lost two fullbacks in Walker and Trippier, and probably some other players I've forgotten about. And the people who've come in have made mistakes and haven't looked that great. And also, defence is a team thing. When he was at Chelsea, he just drilled them and drilled them and drilled them, and he had some good players there. It's not like that in this job. He's had 18 months and some quite bitty games and players coming and going. And I'm not making excuses for him. It just hasn't worked the way he would like it to. And I think the defence comes from the entire team. For example, the goal that Jed Spence was kind of seen to be at fault because he got drawn into the middle for the goal against DR Congo. That really, if you watch that whole move, that came from the midfield. The guy he was tracking was a midfielder who England's midfield had not tracked. He'd made a forward run, so Spencer was drawn into that, as he should, because he's the man there, which left this huge gap over there. And the reason the TV did a close-up of Declan Rice shouting at people after that was partly because, well, where were you, Declan? And probably someone was shouting at him. I think he probably felt, oh, that's my man. And it's a team defence thing, and Tuchel doesn't really have, the players hasn't been able to get his team defence thing into them in the same way, for whatever reason.
Yeah. Archie, what do you, I mean, I was on TalkSport this morning, and so I flicked on, I get the line about 10 minutes before, and they were doing, the phone in, what should happen, and people ringing up going, well, you've got to put Declan Rice at centre back. Reece James, if he's not fit, doesn't matter, get him in centre mid. And you're going, oh God, we can't have this. And really, there aren't that many changes that Tuchel can make, right? I would personally keep Gay and Concert at centre back. I think it's a bigger risk to bring Stones in, and then I think Gerald Quansha might be fit, so you could play him at right back. But otherwise, I would keep the back four, and really you've got to keep the centre mid. You've got to keep Kane. So it is just who you start on the wing, I think. But maybe you think they could be bigger changes.
No. I'm with Barney on the right winger combination needing to be found, but I think that can also be a game-by-game thing. Noni Madueke is going to be really important for how much he stretches the Mexican left-hand side and how much running they're going to have to do, because England are going to have to counter them when it comes to them tiring us out. Julian Quiñones has looked excellent so far in this tournament. How England and how Tuchel make a plan for that will be key to succeeding in this game as well. If it was down to any changes in the team, I'd look at Kobbie Mainoo as a potential one in the centre of midfield.
For who?
I was doing something really fun that you would love to do, Max, which was looking at Declan Rice's running numbers in the Champions League. And he's running actually a kilometre less than he was in some of Arsenal's Champions League games towards the end of the season right now. And when you have neural pain in your hamstrings, we saw it with Ismail Saibari, the top sprinter at this tournament with Morocco. Was it a surprise that his leg went twang at some point when you're trying to do that amount of high-intensity running? And how much of Declan Rice's game is based on energy and how much he gets about the place? And Kobbie Mainoo had an excellent second half of the season for Manchester United, had similar success for England actually coming in halfway through the tournament as well. I think it needs to be considered as an option because in a tournament as long as this, where you are being challenged as much physically, you are going to have to make a difficult call at some point. It would be a huge call, I think, were he to do it ahead of this game at the Azteca.
Brazil-Norway, Barry. Can you make a case for Norway in this game?
I think I can make a case for both of them, to be honest.
Oh, good. Well, here we are, Your Honour.
Yeah, I sit resolutely on the fence. Brazil are quite obviously very susceptible to high balls over the top, and that is Norway's game plan. I'm making it sound more prehistoric or Jurassic than it actually is. But I think Brazil could play right into Norway's hands in Erling Haaland, which is he is a case to be made for Norway winning on his own. But in Haaland and Sorloth, Norway have two big lads who are physical handfuls, very good in the air. And that's what Japan were missing in their game against Brazil. And I believe Norway sort of have a bit of a hoodoo on Brazil insofar as they've played each other 4 times and Brazil have never beaten them.
Oh, right.
So if that counts for anything, probably not. And then obviously Brazil are very good at football. They have Vinicius Jr., they have Carlo Ancelotti in charge, and they seem to be growing into themselves with each passing game in this tournament. So I'm really looking forward. I'm looking forward to both games tomorrow. I think the England-Mexico one is going to be a great football occasion, whatever the outcome. I did say before the tournament started I thought England would lose against Mexico in the round of 16, so I'm going to stick with that, even though I'm not massively convinced it's going to happen. But fingers crossed. And then this is what a great curtain raiser this is. I'll give Norway a good chance.
Just to add to your point on Mexico there, just to give a little peek behind the curtain, before we started recording, I just quietly heard Barry going, Mexico, Mexico.
Barney, you mentioned you were at the Argentina-Cape Verde game, which is the game of the tournament so far, and the Sidney Lopez Cabral goal was just unbelievable. I just wanted your reaction watching it there live.
That was an amazing moment, and we were quite close to it in the press box, and I was there with Pablo, our US colleague.
Yeah.
We'd got increasingly gripped by this game. We both started off on a kind of, it's going to be about Messi, isn't it? Let's just do, how much Messi should we do? Shall I lead on Messi? How much Messi? Had all this kind of things I wanted to say about Messi. And that just quickly evaporated. And when that goal went in, it was, can I just say it's lovely to be hugged?
Yeah.
It's lovely to feel to feel arms around you. And Pablo is a lovely man, and he smells nice, so that was really lovely. And it was great because he was down below us, so we got a full view of him going to see the woman who either was his wife/girlfriend or is now, or was just someone he'd also spotted on the camera and thought, well, there's like a nice person I'd quite like to talk to. If I score an incredible goal, I think I'll go up there. And she did very willingly come over and give him a hug. So, that was an amazing moment. And what a goal, it was Josimar-esque. And they were fantastic. They really were. What a team. What a kind of spirit they have. And I've mentioned already Bubista and my deep, quite emotional feelings for serene, gloomy men who seem to have the world in a kind of fairly decent balance. And he was really nice afterwards. And again, in contrast to Jesse Marsch, first thing he said was, congratulations to Argentina, they showed why they are world champions, and then talked about his pride in his own team. So it was a really wholesome occasion, and I enjoyed it a lot.
It would be absolutely sensational if that woman was just some randomer that Sidney Cabral had spotted on the Jumbotron.
Swipe right. That's what he's going to do. She didn't look that bothered, did she? She was like, I almost like, what are you doing? Like, it's the middle of the game. Barney, you promised us an anecdote about the mafia in Miami. Are you safe?
I am safe. I just like to make that. No, it was just, people sometimes wonder what it's like travelling around at these places, and you have some odd, this felt like a bookend. Do you remember when Owen Gibson and I were kidnapped in Manaus in Brazil 2014 in a taxi, and I was supposed to be doing the pod, and I had to kind of phone up and say, I'm in a taxi I'm in a car with some men, and everything's fine, and yes. And they were off to some sort of shady place that they wanted to take us to. It kind of felt slightly like that, and there was basically I travelled about 8 hours from Atlanta to Miami. It'd been a really long day. I'd been at game the night before, checked into my hotel. I really wanted to watch the end of Portugal-Croatia, which was just entering extra time right at the end. It was really tight. I rushed into the bar. I kind of, at the hotel, had my suitcase with me, and I just ordered a drink so I could sit down. And a guy next to me, I just heard a voice insisting that I sit down and have a drink with him in a kind of thick accent. And I said, no, I'm fine. I just want to watch this game. No, I'm fine. And he kept insisting. And then I looked down. It was a man in a kind of Hawaiian shirt with quite a sort of weathered face, like stringy looking. Mm-hmm. Kind, you're thinking Paulie Walnuts-ish. So I ignored him for a bit. And then he said to me, I heard him saying, I'm Sicilian. And he started whispering something about Cosa Nostra. You need to show some respect. And I kind of thought, I said, yeah, it's fine. I looked at him and I thought, I've been around football a lot. People always talk about things. This is never really real. So I kind of went, yeah, I'm sure you are. Why? And he wouldn't stop. He'd been drinking rum quite clearly from his glass. He wouldn't sort of stop talking about it. And he started showing me the tattoo on his ankle, which he said was a Cosa Nostra tattoo. And he said, you should be careful who you talk to around here. And I looked at it and I thought, yeah, it's a tattoo. And I wasn't really in that vibe. So actually I said, oh yeah, well, look at that. That's Les Parapluies de Cherbourg, Catherine Deneuve. Great film. Reminds me of a really nice time I had in the north of France once. And at which point he kind of didn't like that at all, and suddenly there was mention of people being shot in the back of the head.
Wow. Okay.
And I kind of thought, I was thinking, what are the chances that some random Cosa Nostra connected man is going to be hanging around drinking rum in a hotel bar in Miami? And then I thought, well, maybe the chances aren't as small as maybe that is where they end up. But the problem was the game. So now I switched completely to kind of, would you like me to buy you a drink? Can we be friends? I don't want to be murdered. I don't even know who's going to reach the final. I don't know what's going to happen here yet. Not the moment to be murdered. But I was watching the time go down, thinking, I need to get out of here. I need to watch this game. I don't want to panic. So I was thinking, there's only 4 minutes left now. Like, it's going to be over. I can go up to my room and escape. So when that goal was VAR'd off, which prevented it from going to extra time, which most people saw as an injustice, there was a man in a hotel bar, that man being me, privately punching the air, thinking I get to live now because the game will now finish and I'll get to run away. So I said very politely, "Thank you very much for the drink. It's really nice to meet you," and ran off to the lift. And I haven't seen him since. I did look over my shoulder a lot whenever I was in the car park because there were lots of big kind of Lincoln Continentals around and things like that. But I seem to be okay.
Maybe he thought you were Thomas Tuchel, right? That's the problem. For the tape, Barney lifted his sleeve to reveal a tattoo of 3 umbrellas, if you weren't entirely sure, just for the listening audience.
I only discovered Barney has ink, I think on our first or second day here. I've known Barney. I won't lie, I was very surprised.
Right, okay. Well, I think they're lovely, Barney.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. I mean, people do this as a kind of personal memory. I'm glad that you think they're lovely, and I did think Barry was going to say on our first or second date when he took his shirt off, but I really meant to talk about that, Barry.
I know. In the long text he said saying, "Listen, I just think we should be friends." It must have been a real letdown. But look, maybe you'd be lucky in love some other time. That'll do for today. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Archie.
Thanks, Max.
Cheers, Barry.
Thank you.
Enjoy the game tomorrow.
Cheers, everyone.
Football Weekly is produced by Rory Simon and Matt Bentley-Viney. Our executive producer is Joel Grove, and we'll be back tomorrow.